Joining me tonight, my guest and my new friend, I'd like to think, hopefully at the end of it anyway, we haven't fallen out, is Wil Collins. So Wil might need an introduction to some people, but a lot of people may know him through the music industry. Wil works for Prosthetic Records, a great record label, but on the side as well, he is lead singer of a band called Candescent A.D. And this is our first time meeting face to face. So, first of all, thank you. It's lovely to meet you.
Likewise, it's nice to not be just like an anonymous face in a Twitch room.
Yeah, or an email.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So we oh sorry, first of all, I just have to point out, has everyone seen the Heavy Matters Christmas edition I did today?
I did like the Photoshop, by the way. So how much are you charging?
It's so bad, isn't it?
No, I love it. I might lose some goth points here, but I actually really love Christmas as a time of year. I'm not practicing Christian at all, but I like the whole festive period. It's nice.
Of basically just doing lots of this.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Cheers. Virtual cheers, by the way, yeah. So yeah, if you're listening to this on audio, shameful plug here, you can see the new logo on our Instagram and Twitter. Yes, that's out of the way. And so we met through you being publicist for Prosthetic Records. And I can't remember if you contacted us or we contacted you, but basically how this relationship started is we got in contact either way, and it started professionally, I'd like to think. Yeah. And you were sending us promos and we were doing doing reviews and stuff. But it feels a bit like a first date to me, this.
And yeah, I was thinking that before we kind of hit the record button, that it's strange how if you've spoken to someone for a while, whether it's in a professional capacity or not, and you're aware of kind of what their presence is like online, what they're like just in conversation, but you still get that thing where you meet them for the first time where it's almost like a familiar stranger, because they are essentially a stranger to you, right? Like,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And like when you sort of first come on the Zoom, it's like, oh, there he is. And just, you know, you just connect. But we sort of went past the professional, we still work on a professional basis together, but I think we've gone a bit more personal in ways, and we'll come on to that through Candescent AD. But like social media, I think, is a good connection for people, and we'll come on to Twitter later because there's a few things we need to talk about. But first of all, let's talk about your band, Candescent AD. So I can't remember how, in fact, you must have said to me about the band, and I checked it out, and I think I played it on my Twitch stream actually, and a big fan of the EP. Now bear with me to get this right. Dissociation in 3 fractions.
So it's dissociation in 3 fractions.
Oh God, yeah. I think I need glasses.
To be fair, I misspell it so consistently now that it's probably got 1,000,001 different like pronunciations.
I was half there in 3 fractions. We'll call it that. And that came out this year, didn't it? 22.
Yes, it came out on April Fool's actually. Yeah.
Was it? Wow. Yeah. Jeez, that's so long ago.
I feel like I've aged.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Look at the grey and the beard. But yeah, so the band, and you're on Church Road Records, is that right?
Yeah, we are. Yeah. So this is our first release with Church Road. We had kind of a 2-track single prior to joining Church Road, but really, I mean, the band at that point, it was more of a project. It wasn't really a band. It sort of accidentally became something that we've made time for. So, but this is like the first thing that we're going to be doing that we have done with Church Road, but I can't see us having a home elsewhere for a little while.
I mean, when we talk about the UK scene at the moment, like we've said it on the podcast loads of times, the UK scene in terms of heavy music is in the best place I've seen it for since I can remember. And Church Road as a label, since Church Road set up, is certainly such a great home for these sort of bands to be. And I also think it massively helps, and you'll probably agree, that the people who are running it in Justine and Sammy from Employed to Serve are the perfect people to pioneer this label and the music on it.
Yeah, I mean, they're two of like my closest friends, and like I mean, I was there when it got set up in the way that people know Church Road now.
Mm.
So it's been cool seeing it kind of be born from like an incredibly tricky situation to navigate into kind of what it is now, which is, I think, needed within the UK scene, especially because I feel like you either have like the super DIY hobby labels, which are great and they serve a massively important purpose to like the whole infrastructure of releasing music and underground, or you then get the step above what Church Road are, and that's not attainable for many bands who are just starting. So I think Church Road's like a really nice in between spot where you get the familiarity and the time of people who really care about putting out your stuff, but with the resources of a label that's maybe operating on a slightly bigger scale than your standard DIY, like backroom kind of venture. So,
and I think also the friendship thing you were talking about. Obviously, running a label is a business, and money is obviously meant to be made. There's no getting away from that at all. Money makes the world go round. It's how we live. But I have to admit that the friendship you have between the two, and I think you put something on social media the other day. I think Justine sent a mail saying you need to ship some stuff on Bandcamp or you're going to be dropped or something like that, and it's just a really nice. You could feel the friendship between the two of you there.
yeah, I actually photoshopped that whilst I had maybe one too many glasses of wine. And I'm glad that she took that in good jest, that she's like the horrible label boss in this like sort of piss take scenario. For the record, she isn't. She's lovely. But
The two of them are so nice. We interviewed them on their last release.
Nice.
And then I actually went to see them in Tunbridge Wells. My sister lives there, and I flew over to see the gig. And after I went and met them both, like, and just had a chat, and they're like the nicest people ever. Like,
I think like Sammy and Justine, I think they're both like two really lovely golden retrievers, just in human form. Like, I'm convinced.
That's a nice yeah, that's a compliment, isn't it?
Yeah, I would say. Yeah, I would say so. Yeah.
But anyway, sorry, coming back to your band. So how long have you been active? How long would you say this band has become a band? How long?
Well, we started in 2019 because we had studio time left over with this band that we were in previously called Early Black, and that was sort of a thing that we'd done for 3 years. We were sort of a step below touring, so it was just like a lot of weekenders. Did like recorded once a year and then just put stuff out consistently. And our guitarist moved away, like quite far away, and we decided to end that band like amicably, because we didn't want to do it without him. But the bastard left us with studio time and holding the bag a little bit. So yeah, thanks Sam if you're listening. But so we just had studio time and we just booked the studio, and Candescent was the three remaining members plus Dan, who drums for Candescent. He came in, and yeah, we recorded with the intention of it just being see what happens, but we got 2 songs out of it, thankfully, that were written largely in the studio. And then 2020 happened, so we kind of had nothing to do really. And I think from there, once we came out of the pandemic, well, not that we ever really properly came out of it, but once things got lifted and opened up, it was sort of around about that point that people wanted to start playing shows like within the band, and that's when we sort of became, I guess, like official, I suppose. But yeah, it's a bit of a weird history, this band. We sort of half-assed it, and then we weren't half-assing it anymore. Like,
brilliant.
Yeah.
The music itself, like, I'm going to probably mispronunciate this as well, but is it Winesh Gardens?
So it's Winesh Gardens, and
Winesh.
that's it's like an estate up the road from me.
Okay, sound
Yeah.
right, perfect. I love that song so much. I think it's got. I was listening to the other day actually, because obviously just refreshing for when we were going to speak, and there's times in it that it reminds me of Earth Tone 9 vibes.
Yeah, I've seen a couple of people say that. Like, yeah, it's cool.
Do you agree?
Um, I think subconsciously probably has crept
Yeah,
in. Yeah, like I don't think that we ever had Earth Nine like on our like listening at the time, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's crept into Rory, our guitarist's
right.
sort of accidental subconscious kind of thing.
And also it really is sort of nostalgia to me, because when I was growing up in Bournemouth, like when I was like 17, 18, I don't know if you were the same, but like going to the local circuit of bands, every weekend you'd have sort of like the same band playing and then a different support band and stuff, and you'd get to know them. Like, and the sound on your record really brought that back to me as well. This nostalgic feel of like not DIY bands, but just bands that are, really working hard, to put out good music. And what I also like on your album is the production of it. It's not over polished, and it really holds this almost raw, but not really raw, but sort of dirty sort of sound, if that makes sense to it.
Yeah, totally. Like that's totally down to a guy called Jack who produces all of the Candescent stuff, and there was a guy called Matt Williams who helped with the mix.
Okay.
And really, I mean, I think they're probably like a couple of years older than the rest of us, bar like our current bassist Mitch and Dan. And because of that slight age difference, I mean, they would have grown up actually getting to see those bands, whereas like Earth Tone 9, because I think with me, Rory and Freddie, we were just that little bit too young where we could see the older, cooler kids going to those shows, but trying to convince your parents to like let you go was just a nightmare. But
Yeah.
like 2 or 3 years off from that. So I would definitely give all credit to Jack and Matt for the mix on that for sure. But I mean, we grew up with a lot of stuff like Zayo, Misery Signals, um, metalcore bands of that ilk. So I like newer modern metalcore. It's cool, but it's not what I necessarily want to play or listen to so much when it comes to a production standpoint.
Interesting you say metalcore. Is that what you describe your band as, metalcore? Because the problem with metal these days is there is genre upon subgenre upon subgenre. I consider, and look, you can take this as a compliment or as a insult, either way. I just consider you as a metal band, and these days it's very hard to find that sort of straight down the middle, just metal band.
Yeah, I think for us, we went for metalcore just because it's like the simplest descriptor of it. Like it's metal with hardcore elements,
Mm-hmm.
and like in the traditional sense of metalcore, like before like the whole mid 2000s kind of boom. That's kind of what it was. It was just like kids wearing Slayer shirts, but also owning like Integrity and Converge records, kind of thing. So like that's what we go with. But at the same time, I mean, I remember seeing when we put out Wine Ash Gardens, Brooklyn Vegan, they sort of were really complimentary, and they sort of said like it's labeled as metalcore, but there's a little bit more going on than
Mm.
just what you think of metalcore as.
Yeah.
So, but for me, I mean, I'm not too hung up on genre descriptions. If someone wants to call us a metal band, that's totally fine by me. If they want to call us a hardcore band, I personally don't agree with the hardcore thing so much as the metalcore thing as the
Mhm.
metal thing. But I'm not mad if someone wants to call us that. It's
Yeah.
fine.
I mean, at the end of the day, if someone's listening to your music and they like it, what do you care? Like,
Yeah, totally. I mean, I'd rather just have a conversation about what they like and why they like it
yeah.
than like what box they put it in.
And vocally, then, so I'll hold my hands up. Like metalcore, I could take it or leave it. To be honest,
Yeah,
like my exposure to metalcore would be Killswitch Engage, Parkway Drive. If you threw another couple of names, I'd probably agree. But
like all that remains, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's another one.
Yeah.
Like I haven't really listened to them much. I probably heard a track here or there on like a Kerrang CD back in the day.
Oh, I miss
But
those samplers.
yeah, I know. Now you just
Yeah.
get someone send you a Spotify playlist.
Yeah.
But vocally, um, I really like your vocal style, and I don't know if you're taking this from something from the metalcore days. That's why I held my hands up and said I don't know, but I really like the you've got the graveliness of the vocals, but also you've got these higher tones to your voice. And usually in metal, unless you're a progressive metal band, I can take, the higher lulls. But in metal, I'm like, but I think you do it really well, the mix of the two. Is that something that you took from another metalcore band, or is that just something you do?
I mean, first off, thank you. That's like really, really nice of you to say. But I don't know if that was so much like a metalcore thing, so much as just finding what was comfortable for me. Like I've been playing in bands like on and off for about 14 years now, and with that, my voice has changed over the years, like as
Yeah.
it will do, just to find what's comfortable and also what's within my own capabilities. But I mean, really, my three sort of main core inspirations was sort of more from like the hardcore kind of scene, like Death Wish Records kind of
Okay.
bands. So, I mean, I've got like the Blacklisted flag in the background. I just what George does with his voice is just incredible. Um, and Dwid from like Integrity, um, he just sounds like a mad, like yappy dog, basically. Like that was more sort of the scene that I took inspiration from, but not trying to sound like them. It's kind of always been about what works for me and
Mhm.
sounds good to my ear. So
And do you said like everyone gets older. Let's it happens. Do you find as you're getting older, pulling it off live, do you find the restrictions on it? Do you find it easier or harder? Like,
um I don't know about harder, but I think because like as aging comes to us all and things get in the way, and like some beautiful things like family stuff pops up,
mhm.
or I don't know, like someone that you're seeing demands a bit more time and all that stuff, so band gets put to the side. I think for me the thing that I've struggled with getting older is like how intermittent things are now. So like we hadn't played shows together as a group in any band that we'd been in before for about 3 years. So when we did that tour with Burner in August, I mean, it wasn't so much the demand that caught up with me. It was just like being out of practice. So like by day 4, I was just shagged, like absolutely shagged. But I
Yeah,
mean, I just taking care of yourself really, and making sure that you account for those things that you kind of have to account for as you get a bit older and you didn't have to worry about when you're like 15.
yeah. Like 2 day hangovers.
Yeah. Or like just, not getting battered on the second night of tour, making sure that you're
Yeah,
like in bed at a reasonable time.
yeah. That tour was pretty big though, wasn't it? It was quite long, wasn't it? From what I can remember.
It was actually pretty short and sweet. I think it like well, we had like a couple of extra dates around it, so it kind of
Okay.
looked a little bit bigger than it was. But I mean the tour with just us and Burner was 4 dates in the end.
Okay.
Um, but we'd had 2 extra dates at the start of August for the Church Road birthday bash.
That's right.
So yeah, so it was like one of those optical illusions that you put all the dates on the flyer and it looks way, way cooler than what it actually is.
And you played Bournemouth as well, didn't you? The Anvil.
We did, yes, yeah.
How was
So
that? I've not been there. I've never been there.
um do you know what? That was not my favorite gig experience.
Oh, go on.
I think they changed hands with staff members or something along the lines with that, with like management.
Right.
And it was a show that didn't really get properly like promoted. And yeah, but do you know what, at the same time, like that's live music, and if we're going to come to Bournemouth again and the Anvil hit us up, you can catch anyone on an off day or an off period. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
Yeah, like I'm kind of old enough and ugly enough now to sort of take it for what it is.
Yeah, this is one of my gripes that I don't know if you share, but obviously during COVID, we were all stuck in for whatever period of time. Everyone was saying, you know, it's an example is when Download was like, it's on, it's off, it's on, it's off, and everyone was like gagging to get out, and it was cancelled so many times. And everyone was like, I just want to get out and see a show. Now, bands put on like streams and stuff. Like I remember Enslaved put on a couple, Behemoth did one, etc., etc. And then when everything opened back up, you were like, right, let's go. And I remember the first show back in Dublin was at a place called Whelan's. Now it's a small club show, and Unto Others played there. You know, who
Nice.
have just been on
Yeah,
tour
yeah.
with Behemoth and that. And all right, it was midweek, maybe Tuesday or Wednesday. I would be surprised if there's more than like 60 people there. Like,
Yeah, it feels like that happened really quickly as well. Like I think everyone had like stars in their eyes when shows were back.
yeah,
And it felt like there was a period of like maybe 2 months where everyone was at everything. And then I mean I'm only talking from like the experience of London. So like London's always gonna, even a quiet night, it can be reasonably busy if you're lucky. But yeah, like after like the 2 month mark over here, it sort of went back into a bit of a thing of like, oh, I'll catch them next time, and yeah, oh, it
yeah.
doesn't matter, don't worry about it. And it was a gripe I had, but I think that's just human nature. I think, like, especially with the amount of stuff that's like available to everyone now, I think we do take things for granted. And it does suck though that we had 2 years indoors. People were growing like depression beards, not even like stylish beards, like depression beards.
Just fucking let it grow.
Yeah. Came out to it, finally had human contact again, and like, you know, within 2 months, everyone went back to kind of how they
Yeah.
were before, you know, and that does suck. You know, I'm like, I don't think I've really got a good defense for the people who did dip in and out again, but you know.
So the new stuff being worked on for the band, Candescent.
Yeah, we've got one song that we've been playing live, which like completely unreleased, hasn't been recorded yet.
Cool.
And then we've got another song that is as good as done. But then outside of that, we've got like five, six, seven, like half ideas. So that the plan is to like get that all together and properly like chip away at it. So I don't know. I mean, the thing that we're kind of toying with at the moment is whether we want to do an album or if we'd rather just treat it as just drop 7 singles over a period of time. So, because I mean, with this band, we're not going to be a band that tours like a ton. We're not going to be a band that like is going to break through in any way. So it's like we're sort of strangely probably the best band like on the Church Road roster that can kind of just do what we want without having to worry about like the logistics of things, because it's quite a low pressure environment that if we wanted to do a couple of singles with no physicals attached to it, we could do that.
Yeah.
And yeah, in the same way, if we wanted to do like a more traditional album thing, I'm sure we could work something out with like Justine and Sammy to figure out the best way to do that. So
Do you think, and this is only because you were talking about albums and EPs or singles, do you think people these days, when it comes to music, prefer EPs or full lengths?
I think when it comes to metal, I think people do largely still enjoy albums, like as the preference, but I might be like living in a bit of a bubble there for that. But you know, I prefer albums as like my go-to choice. I prefer to listen to an album in full and a whole body of work. But I do think broadly speaking though, if you're a band that's quite busy and has constantly got tours lined up or festival appearances and all the rest of that, I mean, you look at a band like, I don't know, Spirit Box is a good example. They always made a song and dance about video singles, always made a song and dance about like whatever string of dates they've got lined up with like another song. So I mean, you can get creative with it. I don't think there's like one right way to do it for like everyone. I think it depends on what your band's like, what works for your band and what works for your fan base.
Yeah, no, it was just as you said, I thought let's open the conversation up about it. It is one of those, some bands, I think you're right, it does work with EPs. Some bands go a bit too far with the albums and go like over an hour and nearly 2 hours.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it also depends in your mood as well. Like if you're looking for something, a quick hit.
I think stuff like what Candescent are doing, like it suits an EP format better. It's just short, fast, like
Yeah,
bursts of things, keep it short and sweet, go for 20 minutes kind of thing. Um, but if you're like a doom band, like a conventional doom band, like no one wants to hear like a 3-song EP from you. It might as well be an album because it's like 45 minutes anyway. Do you know what I mean? You might as
yeah.
well just record an album. So it's just dependent on band, like.
Although Huntsman released an EP last year. Was it last year or this year?
That
It was
was
last year, wasn't it?
it was last year now, I believe.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think it was last year. I'm like losing track of like
I
time at
know.
this
And
point.
it's only when you said Doom Band like release, and I was like, no, they did release an EP, but
Yeah.
it was still a hefty one.
Yeah. But I mean, with like Huntsman, I wouldn't call them like a conventional doom band. Like they've got all that Americana influence and
Okay,
like the kind
yeah.
of dark folk thing going on. So like it sort of lends itself to like a smaller release if they wanted to hone in on, which I think they did on the Dying Pines. They kind of honed in on more of the
that
like
was the
Americana kind
that
of
was the title
influence.
of it. Yeah,
Whereas if it
yeah,
was like Black Sabbath, for instance, if Black Sabbath were like, oh, we're gonna do like a 3-song like EP, it's sort of like, what's the point, man? You're Black Sabbath,
yeah.
would you put out an album? Like
I love it. So moving on then, because Huntsman are on Prosthetic Records and you work for Prosthetic Records,
yeah,
and this whole industry of music. So I have spoken to Lise Coverdale, who works for Hold Tight, and Nathan Barley, who works for Nuclear Blast, around this whole industry. And it's really interesting actually because I mean we just get sent albums from PR companies and go, here's an album, do you want to review it? But there's so much more on the back end. And Prosthetic as a record label, they've been around and the name has been there, but they've really, the last, I think, sort of 4 or 5 years, they've really sort of grown now. And like the people on the bands on the label, are big names, but you've also got a load of up and coming artists coming up. And we'll talk about them in a minute. But my question to you, Will, do you enjoy your job?
yeah, I love it. Like, yeah,
Fuck off.
like, yeah, I say I hate to be that kind of wanker, but yeah, no, I love, I love working within Prosthetic, and I love working within independent label formats. Because I mean, prior to working at independent labels, I mean, I'd been working on shoestring budgets and DIY projects for years anyway. It was something that I was always going to be reasonably like open to. Like there was always going to be a possibility that I'd do okay in this kind of field if I was just giving a bit of a chance.
Yeah.
And yeah, like I'm always happy to be working on this kind of thing, regardless of label or like, you know, freelance thing. I'm just happy to be working with bands on what is essentially their babies.
Mm-hmm. So at what point do you get involved with the bands then?
Pretty much like so the way at Prosthetic, we'll sign them, and then the first point of contact really is usually like Steve and Becky. So Steve Joe, he's the US label manager. And Becky's the UK label manager. And like, I mean, that's like the condensed short version of
Yeah.
things. And then I'll sort of come in somewhere between like 3 months, like 2 to 3 months before we launch everything
Mm-hmm.
on pre-orders and announcements. And that for me, there is, it depends on what I'm needed for. If it's writing a bio or if it's just getting together social media assets and like press releases, that's usually when I come in just to sort of say hello, and then it escalates a little bit.
And what is the best part of your job?
Um,
It must be meeting like all these cool bands, up and coming bands and stuff. I don't want to
You
put
know what?
words
Do
in
you know
your
what's
mouth.
like the saddest thing about my job though, right? Because like a lot of them are like US based. So like like I've had a chance to meet a fair few of them who come through like the UK, but like that's one thing I have missed about working at a UK label versus a US one is I don't get to see these or meet them as
Yeah,
like instantly as like I would have done at previous jobs. But I know I think my favorite thing is just like my favorite thing actually is writing bios. Like I love being given the opportunity to convey what the band are conveying in their music, but in written form. I
yeah.
thought like that's my favorite thing to do. Yeah.
So you do all the bios that we'd get, and
I don't do all of them. Like it's a bit of a mixture. So
right,
like Becky Laverty, the UK label manager, and yeah, she's like head of press. Like essentially, I'm sort of like her assistant is the best
right.
way I could describe it. It's like I think nature of independent things, your job role is a bit vague. And yeah, so she'll write like a fair few in a year. I'll write a fair few, and then sometimes we'll outsource to other people. Like we've just had a couple of people from outside of the label team write bios for stuff that's going to be put out next year. So it's just whoever can service that band in the best way possible, that's who does it basically.
I mean, the bands that are on the label that I'm just going to read out a few that, like, and this doesn't go down to any of my album of the year list at all, but like this year alone, Without Waves, which was released early in the year, which is batshit
I think
crazy.
that's how me and you got chatting properly, wasn't it?
Yes, it was because I think you set up an interview with me to chat to them, and
Yeah,
they, by the way, are some of the funniest guys. Like
yeah.
they're so nice, and I was even chatting to them by email, like I think over getting the vinyl sent over because it was like really expensive to get it by US post, and they said, "Oh look, I'll just do it locally, send me the money," and it was like, it sounds like for them to be doing that. Uh,
Awesome.
but yeah, I think that was the first time we got talking actually. Um, yeah, Without Waves, Thought Crime, which I don't know if you heard the interview with me and Melody.
I did, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and I said like Will sent this over, and like usually when Will sends stuff over, I'm like, right, let's have a listen. This is going to be good, and it just I didn't know what the hell was going on. It was just insane. My brain couldn't compute or keep up with what was going on.
Yeah, I don't pick favorites just as a professional kind of thing, but like that Thought Crime record I thought was really special this year. Yeah, I really enjoyed that. And so like same goes for Without Waves as well. Like
I
so
mean, those two like are high up on my albums of the year list. Not
yeah.
saying where they're going to be placed, but they are. And it's funny because Venny, who I do the podcast with, when we were reviewing the album, like I couldn't understand how we both like this when we come from the musical background, but it's just so addictive. Like there's so much going on. Like definitely one of the bands of the year to find Thought Crime, and also absolutely lovely people. Like
Yeah, like awesome. I really like funny enough, before I jumped on this call, I've got like an unread message from Melody about something. She sent me a link, so I'm assuming the band have been picked up on whatever online.
yeah,
But
yeah,
like no, all of them are really lovely, and like Kezia and Melody, I think those two are probably the ones that I chat to the most, just on like the prosthetic Discord. And
okay,
yeah, I mean their taste in music is just like really wide reaching and incredible. And
yeah,
like I think why they sort of resonate with people who are maybe a bit more traditionally like have a metal diet and haven't really touched hyper pop or anything like that before. I think the reason it sort of resonates is just I think it's the intensity of the music. Like less so the sound, it's more like the approach to the sound. That there is like a resonance there that kind of sings to metal like in its own way.
but like when I listened to it, like when I was interviewing Melody and she said, "Oh, I was listening to Berserker a lot," instantly I was like, "Ah, of course!" Like with the
Yeah.
drum machines, and then but there's also Critical Codependence, which I described to my mates as this could be a Eurovision Song Contest entry.
Have you heard the record from Diana Starshine, who features on that track? She's just
No,
done a thing called Digifay.
no, is it
Um,
good? Oh, send me that after, will you?
yeah, I will do. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely that's more sort of like the pop end of things, but like it's incredible. There's like some really really cool like little earworms on that record.
Yeah, yeah, and there's loads in this one as well, and the guests they've got on there as well, like from Pupil Slicer and Aki from Dream. Is it Dreamwell?
Doing well. Yeah,
Dreamwell, yeah, yeah. Like so many good artists. She is unbelievable on that track, by the way.
yeah,
It's scary, like
yeah.
at the end.
It's like
Uh
stepped on Lego kind of scream,
yeah,
isn't it?
I think she says like, and then there's like an outro like I'm gonna stab you with a knife and you're gonna love every second of it or something like that. And it's just
Yeah,
like, okay, this is actually scaring me a bit.
yeah,
Yeah. Um the other ones as well this year, God Alone from Cork.
yeah.
Like, you know, in Ireland, now I'm obviously not Irish, you can probably tell by my accent, but I live here. You know, we don't get a lot of Irish bands. They play local shows, but to get them on like a label like Prosthetic is great. And you sent that Thought Crime and God Alone together with a
Yeah.
lovely pitch, by the way.
Oh, thank
You
you.
know, you schmoozed me nicely on it. But again, another great band who played Arctangent last year and were literally like, if you hadn't heard them before and didn't know they played Arctangent, you'd be like, they're going to play Arctangent in the future.
I'm so gutted that I turned down Arctangent this year. I had the offer to go, but I was just so tired because I just like was about to go on tour
Yeah, yeah,
um at the time. But like I really wanted to go to see specifically God Alone. Obviously People Slicer as well, but like I've seen People Slicer countless times.
yeah.
My thing that I really wanted to do was go and properly meet God Alone and like say hello. But yeah, I'm next time they're in London, it's on my to-do list.
Yeah, I mean, I was in Australia when they played their album release show in Dublin. Otherwise, I'd 100% been there.
Yeah.
Another Irish band who I don't know if you've heard of called By Curious.
Yeah, I have. They were
Yeah,
on Arctangent as well, weren't
they
they?
were. I actually met them flying to Arctangent from Dublin in the
Yeah.
airport. They're on the same flight.
Nice.
Lovely guys.
Yeah.
They're like post rock instrumental, but they're another good band.
I'm not super familiar with their sound, but I kind of this might be, and I mean this like in a nice way, but I might be off base with this. Like they sort of look aesthetically, it's like a Big Scary Monsters record kind of like looking type band, right?
I don't know.
Oh, Big Scary Monsters, man. That's like
I'm not.
proper like
I'm not getting
it's like
involved with your
friendly Arctangent music, basically. Is
it. Yeah, like yeah, the drummer like wears a flat cap and ear
yeah,
defenders.
yeah.
Yeah, you can call it that.
Yeah, and as I was saying, like if they are listening to this at all, that's not a derogatory
Oh
thing.
no,
That's just like
absolutely not.
what that's my preconceived notion.
Yeah,
Like,
but they're lovely guys as well.
cool.
But then as well, like on, I just put a few sorry, artists that are on the bill on Prosthetic, but like Huntsman we discussed, Leached, The
Yeah,
Machinist, which came out this year, which is a brilliant album.
yeah.
Um, another one I can't pronounce, Tomarum.
Oh, tomorrow. Yeah.
There we go. Like that's
I've
got
probably I've probably pronounced that wrong as well. I think all three of us prosthetic like pronounce it differently. Like,
uh Undeath, which has been, I mean, I'm not a huge death metal fan. I like my sort of technical death metal, but I've not seen an album in the death metal world make waves like that as this
yeah.
year.
Yeah, it's been, and I'm not one to like go into hyperbole, but I do feel like with death metal, it has been Undeath's year. Like,
Absolutely.
yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's like other great stuff like that Vomit Fourth record that came out this year was incredible as well. I think that might have been Century Media. But like, yeah, but bias aside, I think like Undeath have just been incredible. Like, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, I'm not. the album.
Sorry, I don't know that one.
The album, like I said, Death Metal, it's fine. Like, I can appreciate it. I wouldn't go back to it that often, but big death metal fans have been absolutely throwing themselves over it, and it's like, it feels like the Cannibal Corpse sort of stir.
Oh,
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the fact they're coming over to the UK now, and everyone is just jumping on it.
I'm so looking forward to meeting them for the first time on the UK thing.
Oh, you'll be there with them, obviously, yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna it was probably around about this week, really. I was gonna go over to America to watch them and Phobophilic, like label mates.
Jesus.
But yeah, this time of year, man, I've not been burnt out. That's too strong a term, but like, I think, as I was saying to you in the old DMs, like, I was like, I'm just knackered at this point. I'm like looking forward to a couple of days without setting an alarm clock.
Yeah, so. Absolutely. Oh, you need that, totally. Yeah. Then you've got Venom Prism, Werewolves, and Psychroptic, which
Venom Prison aren't with us anymore. I think a couple of people have said this. They're
really?
on they're on Century Media now. Yeah. I loved that record though. I thought Erebos was fantastic.
Yeah.
But...
Sorry, was it not released on... Why is it still there then?
No, I don't know. But yeah, like no, that they I only worked with them like super briefly. They did a compilation thing of their first demo, first EP, and then 2 new tracks. And like, I worked with them for like literally the grand total of like a month, and then they went over and got the gig at Century Media. But
I'm giving them kudos on your label.
No, I mean, don't worry. I mean, the only reason I put it up is like, I don't want us to take credit for that.
Yeah.
But like, I love that record though. I thought, like, really cool, and I've loved that band long before working at Prosthetic anyway. So
yeah, their first album again was like making massive waves at the time, wasn't it?
Yeah. Dude, any album that's got a cover of a guy being force-fed his dick, that's like...
Yeah.
Yeah, like, that's worth anyone's time, man. That's hard as fuck.
Like... For sure. And then the final band, that is Psychroptic, who are coming to Dublin on a hell of a bill.
Yeah, it's like, it's Benighted,
Archspire,
and Archspire, right?
Yeah. Unbelievable. So that'd be a good one to have.
Yeah. They're lovely. Like, all of those dudes, like, on the emails and stuff. And like, I don't know if I ever showed. Have you listened to Jason's other band, Domination Campaign?
Yes, I don't know if you sent it on to me or not.
It might have done. It was quite early on when I started working at Prosthetic at the time. But like,
you definitely told me about them.
But yeah, I always love working with Jason. He's just like really, really cool and easy to get along with, and just it's just the time zones. You know, you send an email at 2 o'clock in the afternoon over here, and it's just, what time is that in Australia? You know?
Yeah.
Like,
I know what you mean. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, that's a phenomenal like roster you're working with. The other thing that I wanted to talk about is Twitter.
Yes.
Because so okay, let me start again. Twitter, or social media, can be an absolutely magnificent tool for the likes of startup DIY bands connecting with their fans. I mean, the bigger ones like Metallica and Maiden don't need it really. It's just sort of like a nice to have. But there is this horrible side of Twitter that no matter, like, you could say,
get a bit much.
It can. And like, what's your thought? Like, you obviously use it for work, and you use it for promoting the band, and you use it for a lot of Winona Ryder gifts, which, in case anyone doesn't know, Will loves that woman. But you do use it a lot. You do use it a lot. And what's your thoughts on social media? Coming from first of all, let's start from a professional perspective. So the music industry.
Music industry, I think it's like a really positive thing. You know, I mean, I wouldn't have I'd have got to know you. I would have got to know you pretty well in a professional capacity via emails without Twitter, that would have been fine. But then, you know, like it's just it's making it a little bit more informal, and it's just reminding like yourself that you can have an interaction with people such as you and people who run the other podcasts, such as the Bangers and Mosh Dudes, for instance.
Yeah.
You can interact with them quite freely and openly, and it not be about work, or like no one has to feel like I'm pitching to them. Like it's just a chat. And then getting to converse with people like Lisa, who I really look up to as a publicist. I think she's incredible at what she does.
Oh, I'm gonna have to edit that out now.
And shout out to Jim as well, obviously, and the rest of the whole tight team. I think they're really lovely people. But I think on a professional level, it can be great. I think the downside of using it on a professional thing, if I'm talking about using like the label Twitter, or like I'm talking about seeing like friends who run their own kind of businesses, I think the downside is, unfortunately, people forget that it's a human being behind the screen sometimes. So, you know, oh, sorry, these vinyl LPs, they're going to be shipping later because there's been a pressing plant problem. Fuck you and your mother. You know, it's like the first response. It's like, yo, dude, like it's like 8 a.m. over here. I'm just trying to tell you, I'm just doing my job, man. You know, it can quite quickly
it's so true.
And like, you know, and it has descended into that sometimes for me in the past. And it's like, I mean, I've got a pretty tough skin. So like when people are not going to play nicely on those things, I kind of just choose not to engage. Like I've got the power to do that and not engage. But like I do feel bad for other people in professional capacities that maybe don't find that so easy. Or like even get like malice that's a little bit like, well, way harsher than like what I just get behind the screen of running a record label, like behind the scenes, you know?
Yeah. Do you know what I've discovered this time we've been chatting with? Is you're very much an optimist person, and always trying to find the good out of a situation, which is something quite rare because, like, especially on Twitter as well. Like, but no, it's a nice trait you have, that you do try and find the positives out of situations.
It's like a learned thing. I think I like my nature.
So you didn't used to be like this.
Yeah, I think like my nature is probably a bit more like more of a realist, but then realism can quite quickly slip into pessimism if you're not careful. So like, I mean, in the last sort of 10 years or so, I would say it's something that I've really like made a concerted effort to just sort of go like, rather than be reactive to things, just take a step back sometimes and like just acknowledge that someone's probably just having a bad day and you've got caught in the crosshairs.
Which I think is some sound advice to people on Twitter, is like, you don't have to respond straight away. Like, and to be honest, I learned this very quickly in my job as well. Like, I don't say what we do, but my job, people will send a shitty email to you and your instinct is to just get straight on them, and now it's just like, put it down, walk away for 10 minutes, take a breath, or we leave it overnight. And I think the problem with Twitter is it's so at your fingertips and reactive that, like you said, people forget there's someone, Wil Collins, just, you're having a friendly bit of banter and all of a sudden someone's got, oh, you're a fucking twat or whatever. And it's like, what? Why was that?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, like, if you like boil it down to what it would look like in real life,
oh my God,
Twitter is a thing. I mean, imagine just like having a cigarette with your friend outside of the smoking section and just saying like, oh, do you know what, man? I didn't actually really vibe with that last album from like Joe Blogg's band. It would then be like someone running and punching you in the nuts and being like, you're a dick. What's so uncalled for? Like, what? Like, what's that about?
And like, that is so true. And that's what we were talking about, wasn't it? Like, I think
sometimes it's fine just to walk past that conversation and be like, oh, what an idiot. But you don't have to say it to them. Just think they're an idiot and walk on. It's fine.
Exactly.
Like,
yeah. And this is to your point about the album of the year list, or sorry, I'll take it. Let's go higher. It's not even album of the year list. It could be oh, I really like pizza, and someone goes, no, you don't. That's the worst food ever. And you're like, but what? Like,
Yeah, I was talking about my favorite food. Like,
exactly.
dingbat, like just calm down. Like,
Yeah. And I mean, it got to the point, I'll be honest, like in the summer, I was on the verge of like burnout, like you said, because I was, doing my day job, I was doing this, I was doing Twitch, and I was managing like I do, or I used to manage the social media for us as well. I say
Yeah.
manage. Manage is ridiculous. But I used to run it, and it got to a point where I was like, do you know what? I can't look at this thing anymore because it was so abhorrent.
Yeah, dude, like I on weekends, like when because I run pretty much all of the prosthetic social media side of things, like in terms of the day-to-day goings on
Yeah.
of things on it. And like, to be honest, by the time it hits a weekend, I very rarely like um engage with any kind of discourse or music kind of thing on social media. If I'm on it, it's usually to send like a couple of my best mates like animal videos, or like I might read an article somewhere from like favorite journalists who aren't music journalists, they're just journalists in general.
Yeah.
Because it's too much sometimes, man. Like, and like I do think what works for me, but like my advice to anyone who is struggling on social media, like just overuse of it, is just like easier said than done. But if you're not running any one social media account, just you don't have to be on it. Just like take a
Yeah.
step back. Doesn't mean you have to delete your account and make like a whole post telling everyone you're leaving like the town square. But like sometimes it's just fine. Just like have a swift Irish exit and come back when you're ready. It's okay. Like
Love it.
like yeah. But I mean, like I've been through like without getting too heavy on it, but like I've been like in therapy for like 10 years, and I finished late last year, kind of like this time last year. And like a lot of that stuff for me has really helped with this kind of aspect of the job, and also just this aspect of being human and being connected to everything all the time. Like, it's a process that I don't think people can come to naturally without like having a bit of a guiding hand sometimes, for sure. Like,
and I think the very good point you made earlier was, if you see something and you don't agree with it, just move on.
yeah,
Like,
like
I mean, it's like you said, it's like inciting hate at times,
yeah,
and things can snowball so quickly. You've seen it on like, just someone will post something like, I don't know, even just like a GIF or a comedy thing, and it just snowballs into where people are actually, threatening people with stuff like.
yeah, it's shitty. I mean, like I remember it was sort of like late last year, like I don't know, Twitter got kind of particularly toxic this time last year,
Yeah,
like from what I can remember.
yeah,
And like I just saw so many people like literally like verbally assaulting each other over like album of the year picks at certain points. And like that's not even just like, I'm not even talking about the metal scene here. I'm just talking generally
yeah.
speaking, like all areas of that. Like Stan Twitter can be really horrible. Like,
Mhm.
um and like I just remember thinking to myself, I was just sort of like, just where does that kind of animosity come from? I mean, I just don't get it. And like for me, I just choose not to engage with it. It's just like not my thing. And like in the same breath as well, like if you are going to engage with it, like engage with it from a place of like having a conversation.
Yeah,
Obviously, if someone is saying something awful that is racist, or like just like any form of phobia behind it,
yeah,
yes, put your foot down and say like, don't be a dunderhead, like, and swiftly hit the block button and just
yeah,
make sure your mate's okay or whoever's been targeted is okay. But for the most part, shit like, what's your favorite film, then turning into like a 3-page thread arguing against people, it's just, that's not what it's for. That's like the base, like the worst base instincts of people. You don't have to do that. And it's like, if you're over 15 and you're doing that still, it's a bit embarrassing, mate. Like, like
I mean, yeah. Look, we can go on about this for ages. So let's bring this
yeah.
bring this back up, shall we?
You mind if I smoke, by the way?
Yeah, fill your boots.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. Let's finish up with a positive note. And I put something on the Heavy Matters Twitter feed earlier. Top 5 albums, and to be honest, right,
Yeah.
going back to what we were just saying, it was completely amicable. Touch wood. I haven't seen in the last hour or two whether it's gone massively kicking off, but it was actually fairly amicable. Everyone was just, yeah, here we go. So your top album of the year, Will. What is your? You don't have to, obviously, but
No, well, I think I've been pretty public about it. I would say Brutus's Unison Life. I thought was incredible. A very close second was by a band on $20 spin, called Black Magnet, and they put out an album called Body Prophecy. And those two were like my two favorites. Yeah.
the Brutus one, I never listened to Brutus before, and we reviewed it a couple of weeks ago, and I really didn't know what to expect because Venny's very much the post rock, post metal side of it. So if he suggests an album, I'm usually like, okay, this could be hit or miss. Absolutely stunning album.
Yeah, I love that band. I don't know how I got into them. They're one of those bands that somehow they just ended up in my library, and that was on the album prior to this one called Nest.
Yeah.
And yeah, Nest ended up in like my iTunes library somewhere along the line. Oh, Apple Music, sorry, kind of showing my age just a little bit there. But like yeah, like in my Apple Music library. And yeah, I've just been a massive fan of them ever since. I think it's kind of like alt rock, but it's also like kind of got that cool post hardcore, but also cool post metal thing going on as well. So it's like,
yeah,
I just think they're fantastic. I am like really rubbish at explaining why I like bands. For me, it's like a very primal thing. If I like it and it resonates, it just does. And yeah, I just think this new album though, like I was sure my favorite album of the year was going to be that Black Magnet one, and Brutus came out, and I literally had one listen. I went like, I'm not usually like this, but I just went, yeah, that is the album of the year. Like, there's no point. Everyone go home.
Isn't it so good, like music in that way? And that's the beauty. So, well, certainly people outside the metal scene will not understand metal music, and that's very abundantly clear. But I think across all spectrum of music, that it can have such an impact on you to just listen to an album once and be like, I love this.
Yeah. And like, I mean, I like the label they're on, it's sort of like a management company / sort of like a label, but Sergeant House.
Yeah.
For me, they're one of like a couple of labels that for me it is a seal of approval. That even if like I don't like a record that I've interacted with from them, I'm still gonna be at least intrigued. Like even at the end of the album, I might be like, oh, I don't really get it, but like that was kind of interesting for what it was. Are there like one of like maybe like 3-4 labels that like have that appeal for me?
I know exactly what you mean. Pelagic Records has that appeal for me.
Yeah, like Flenser is like another one for me as well. Like really cool. The Flenser.
Right.
So they've done like a bunch of stuff like Planning for Burial, Have a Nice Life. They also
all upbeat stuff.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. And Midwife as well. And like they're a label. Like I don't like all of the stuff on the Flenser, but like it intrigues me enough that I will always check it out at least, and like the very least check it out and like not try to like it, but at least try and sit with it, kind of thing. Like, yeah, if I don't like it, I don't like it. That's kind of what it is.
And that's absolutely fine. Going back to our original point, you don't like something, just move on.
Yeah, totally.
And you also put there was a new Thou album.
Yeah, so Thou and
sneak under the radar in terms of promotion, or am I just not looking in the right place?
No, it was like a really sneaky record, right?
Okay,
so,
it was.
So I was at Roadburn Festival, which like Becky, who is in charge of All Press and does the UK side of things for Prosthetic, she helps run that festival.
Oh, that's that Becky.
So yeah, like that's that Becky. Yeah, that's Becky Baverty, and who is the loveliest human being. Along, like I'm putting her in the same tier as Sammy and Justine at Church Road, definitely.
As what did you say? The
Golden Retriever. The Golden Retriever people. Okay. Yeah. And I don't know, is Becky a Golden Retriever? I'm trying to think of like what dog Becky would be. I think she's like a really smiley Samoyed, maybe. Yeah. I don't know. Anyway, but yeah, so like they played this set with like an artist called Mismore, and they performed the album like in full as like a headline set, I think, on the second day. And like it was something that hadn't been released yet. And I was finally getting the train home when I got to Woking at the end of it all. We drove back, got there, and like out of nowhere, it was like, oh yeah, like that's been released today. It's up on Decibel now in full. So it was like a really sneaky release. It just like played it at Roadburn. It's out now. Enjoy. And that was on Gilead Media, I think, who are like another label that are like stamp of approval for me, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because they did, what was it with Emma Ruth Rundle? They did, was it them and Down?
Yeah. Emma
And
Ruth
that
Rundle
was
and Down as well.
unbelievable.
Yeah.
Uh,
I love Emma Ruth Rundle to bits. I think she's like an incredible musician. Like I'm still yet to like meet her, but like from a fan standpoint, it's one of those ones that I don't know if I'd ever want to meet her because I'd be like, hi, Will, I'm Emma. Oh fuck. like, like
it's so fun because I think she played Arctangent last year, didn't she?
yes.
She did an acoustic set, and it's so funny. Well, it's not funny. This proves our point quite well, actually. Is that tent was absolutely, you couldn't even get to the tent to see Emma Rundle. Like it was packed.
I was told it was like rammed. Yeah, like properly rammed.
And I stood like sort of on the side looking in, and it did nothing for me. And I couldn't understand why it was so packed. But I didn't go chucking bottles at people, did I? Do you know what I mean? They're just like it does something to some people, it doesn't for others.
I think because like that's like this is on her newest like album cycle, which is Edge of Hell, and that's definitely a lot more subdued.
Right.
But I think like knowing you, I think you'd probably have a lot of time for the album before, which is Marked for Death, not Marked for Death, On Dark Horses.
Yeah.
But I also have a suspicion that you'd actually probably prefer the band that she was in prior to going solo called Marriages.
Yeah.
Like if you're unsure or you're not a fan of like that singer-songwriter side of things with this stripped down guitar and just vocals and piano, I do think she's one of those artists that you kind of have like a bit of a sound for each kind of like guitar-based music fan.
Right.
Yeah.
That's it. Maybe I've just not been looking in the right places, and so that's great. You'll have to point me in the direction of some stuff like that.
I'm gonna send a hate tweet out at you after this.
yeah. Atting Emma Ruth Rundle and saying he hates you, and me just being like, "What happened?" Sorry, soz. And am I right in assuming that I don't want to put you in a position where this become awkward, but Thought Crime on Prosthetic, your album of the year on Prosthetic.
So I don't include any prosthetic bands in my albums of the year, just because like it's like I'm human. I do have favorites, like I definitely do, but like on a public like kind of sphere is something I don't typically talk about too much. But
that's fair.
It's not even just to say feelings. It's just a thing of like I just don't think that's like fair. It would be like if Justine and Sammy were like, "Oh, our favorite EP this year was someone other than Candescent." I'd be cool with it, but I'd still be like, "Oh man, that's kind of brutal." Like,
fair enough. I think. Well, I'm not going to say anything because we haven't done our end of year list yet, so I'll leave that out. But there's certainly a few from Prosthetic who are on my album of the year list. Let's say.
Oh, awesome.
Let's keep it at that.
What I will say though is that like Thought Crime's album was like one of the most fun campaigns that I did this year. Like it was definitely like they're just all super easy to work with girls, and like their reference points and their frame of reference for what they were like writing with it was both really informative because some of it I had no fucking clue about whatsoever.
Yeah.
And it was like a learning curve. But then other bits that they're referencing for like the heavier stuff was things that I could remember the first time round of it being popular. So like it was just a fun record to work. And like I'm excited to hopefully keep that campaign going like when and where I can as time moves on.
Yeah. Well, you're doing a great job of promoting these bands, Will. Like,
thank you.
You know, prosthetic, but I deal with you first and foremost. So just keep sending us the good stuff, yeah.
Yeah, for
And,
sure. You're one of my favorite people to email.
oh man,
yeah.
stop it! You're making me
I've
blush.
usually got like my Hunter S. Thompson sunglasses on, cigarette hanging out my mouth, and I'm just like, Joey, listen to this.
And I usually just go, okay, there has been some wicked stuff. Don't stop sending me stuff. And look, I mean, professionally, can't wait to work together, hopefully for many years. And
yeah,
personally, I think this first date went okay. Like I think you might get a peck on the cheek as I leave you at the door, but
right.
I think we won't go any further than that. But hopefully,
I'm a gentleman at heart. I don't mind a peck on the cheek, and I'll just walk you home, and we'll hopefully arrange a second date. It's fine.
But I mean, look, I'm sure next year and we're fully back now into gigs and festivals and stuff. I'm sure our paths will cross at some point, be it in the UK at a festival, UK gig, somewhere in Ireland or abroad.
Thing is, I've been wanting to do Ireland for like a hot minute now, because I've got family in Baddy Castle, and like I wanted to do like a thing where I went to both parts of Ireland respectively. So like if that's like on my plan for next year, when that happens,
mate, I'll make the spare bed up for you. You've got a place here.
Yes.
Well, thanks so much, mate. And listen, this won't be the last time we'll speak. I guarantee you that. And listen, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and I'll speak to you probably tomorrow.
Yeah, no doubt.
Cheers, bud.